they maybe should have done differently, or what they, think they got down. It's the problem with it's kind of like resumes, but interviews are, they're very not personal, but individualized. Some people are stronger at some things, and some people are stronger at others. So I think the resumes and interviews both kind of you have to balance that and present yourself as best as possible. Opinions aren't allowed in industry. I don't know about that. That's kind of a blanket statement, don't you say? But Frost says, when what I have actually in mind differs from what they're looking for, I give them 2 answers. Interesting. That's a good kind of approach. It's like you kind of, the first one is what they are looking for, and then the Frost says that they give a second answer to, however, this is how I see it, or this is how another way to see it is. That's really good, helpful tip. Thank you, Frost. I agree. That's kind of a good way to do it. Anybody else with, experiences or crappy interviews, great interviews? Great interviews are wonderful because afterwards you feel like you're on top of the world, and it's a good feeling to nail it, just like nailing a test. Yeah, typing. What's the most surprised I've been at an interview question? I don't know. I haven't, to be fair, I have been at my job for about 5 years now. So I haven't interviewed recently. I interviewed 5 years ago. I had to do some technical questions that were a little tricky and difficult. They basically kind of asked about, the laws you learn kind of in all of your classes. But I think that I haven't really been surprised. I don't know if anybody else can chime in about a surprising interview question. Anybody? No? How bad is it saying you want to come back to an interview question because you did not know how to answer instantly? So you can take your time answering. I think most employers know that you might not be able to answer everything instantly. And I think if you take a few seconds to kind of gather your thoughts, I don't think that's a problem at all. However, if it's been a couple of questions and you try to come back oh, by the way, that question, then I think that's a little iffy. Because once you have an answer down, you kind of have to stick with it. But yeah, I'd say don't feel afraid to take some time to actually think about the question and provide a thoughtful answer. Because I don't think that will show I don't think that will portray you in a negative light, at least in my opinion. All right. Anybody else? Any other surprising interview questions? I know that I have the list of questions up, and then a lot of them are just kind of generic ones, tell me about a time you were successful, something like that.
I think the most surprising question I've had was, do you know what you're being interviewed for?
Ooh, that's a good one.
And it was a great one because I had been told that I was going to interview for one position, and I actually got interviewed for 2 different positions. So everything was taking me by surprise.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That sucks. I don't know what to say about that other than that it sucks.
Well, I will say this. The very first one was the most ill-fitting position for me that I've ever interviewed for. And like you said earlier, once you get a really bad one out of the way, all the others feel a little bit better. And I think all the future interviews that I had from that point on, I was at least a lot more comfortable because I had been through something so much worse.
Yeah, it's kind of nice to get that one out of the way. And the Lil Grizzly says, tell me about a time you didn't see eye to eye with another teammate. That's good. That's a really good question because you can kind of lay out how you would go about with dealing like with office, like workplace conflict and like differences of opinions. And I think how you would approach that situation would say a lot about your character and, you know, obviously you don't want somebody who's like gonna like, you know, start a fight or something like that about it. But you have to, I think that's a really good question. Here, I'm gonna call you out, Chase. What, how would you respond to that one?
Well, I answered with as much as I knew. I said, am I not here to interview for it was a systems engineering position. It's what I was told I'd be there for. And they said, no, it's, I don't remember the exact title, but it was a materials application engineer kind of thing. They saw that I studied chemical engineering, and so they liked that background, but it seemed like the position was in total conflict with the actual experience that I had listed on my resume.
I meant, sorry, that was a miscommunication. I meant, how would you answer the question, tell me about a time you didn't see eye to eye with a teammate?
Didn't see eye to eye. I know I had been asked that. I apologize, that was a while ago. How I would answer it today, I would of course try to refer to a specific situation, which I don't want to get into the details here, but I've definitely had to, I guess, kind of fight with coworkers on technical concepts, and the way I handled that was I worked out the math and I sat down with them, or we sat down together rather. It wasn't one person trying to teach the other. I think both myself and my coworker did a good job in keeping the conversation level in terms of trying to help each other understand where we're coming from. And it was a matter of whether or not a piece of equipment would work, and in the end it narrowly worked. So we still weren't really positive who was correct because the margin for error for our work was large enough that it wasn't clear. But the situation itself, you know, like I said, it was handled in a very calm and conversational manner where I think we both came to an understanding of each other's viewpoint, but couldn't reconcile the failures in our own, whoever may have had them.
I hear you. That's a good example, though, because it, you know, it says that like you didn't get heated or anything. Like if someone disagrees with you, and I think sitting down with them and like talking it out is a good way to go about that. Rowan asks, is it normal that they give you an exam during an interview? Yes, it is pretty normal. Especially depending on the position. I think it's kind of only natural that if you're going to be, you know, designing circuits or something like that, then you would be asked, you know, take a look at some of these circuits or solve them or whatever. So I have seen that in my experience. And I've been given a CAD test and stuff like that. So I would say that, yeah, that's pretty normal. Frost says, would you agree there should be different directors for internal and external finance? It's very tangential, and I'm not really sure how to answer that. I don't know. I don't know what I think about that one. I don't really have purchasing power, if you guys know what that means. I can't like buy stuff at work.
I believe that was a direct response to my tangential question query.
Okay.
So.
All right. Grayson says, I can't remember the exact wording, but my manager for my internship asked me, what would your last boss say they'd wish you had done more of, or what piece of advice would they have given you? That's interesting. Kind of like, that's kind of a what are your weaknesses question. At least that's how I interpret it. Yeah, kind of looking back and saying, go ahead, Grayson.
That's kind of how I interpreted it as well. I didn't really like the question because it kind of assumes it, like I didn't like my last boss, so for me it was like, oh God, who cares what they think? I don't think they're a good source, but you know.
Definitely don't say that in an interview. But yeah, I hear you. You know, unfortunately, bad coworkers, they exist in group projects in college, and they exist in the workplace, like, you know, in the professional world. And you know, you just got to learn how to deal with them, which is, you know, to be completely honest, I've worked with some very difficult personalities, and you know, I guess learning how to deal with that kind of you know, I wouldn't say it's like a challenge, but kind of learning how to deal with it is part of becoming a, you know, a good employee, I think, or being good at your job. Sometimes it just, you know, you just got to do it. Let's see. What else do you guys? We can talk about some more resume questions. We can talk about actually like preparing for one. I know that what to wear is like not as big of a deal for guys, but it's more big of a deal for girls because our dress codes are usually a little bit more kind of wishy-washy. Have you guys ever felt like over or under dressed, or over or under? I guess over or under prepared is more of a common thing probably. But in terms of like presenting yourself, have you guys ever felt like you struggled with that?
I have a theory that my interviews being done online actually helped me in a way, because I'm not at all like a dress up person. Like I sort of loathe the idea of needing to wear certain kinds of clothes, and like I don't know, I just shirt and jeans. That's my move. So you know, I might have been less presentable than my competitors for the position.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, and sometimes if you haven't like been to the company and see what the people are wearing, it can be hard to predict whether you're going to be dressed up or like overdressed or underdressed. I know the West Coast is a lot more relaxed. I find that like some of the like older companies tend to have like people dress up more, whereas like the new kind of like startup-y kind of places, usually people just wear like whatever they want, like shirt, jeans, you know, t-shirts. I think that tattoos and piercings and your hair maybe aren't as big of a deal on the West Coast. I see a lot more tattoos here on the West Coast than I did on the East Coast. So it's kind of like, again, I guess knowing your audience. And I know my boss personally wears like a button up and slacks every single day. But like I started out when I was going into the office, I started out like looking nice and doing kind of business casual. And then I got lazier and lazier and lazier. And I finally pulled it out of him that he didn't care as long as I wasn't wearing shorts or flip-flops. And so after that, I kind of would just wear jeans and a t-shirt every day. But I think that's much different when an interview, because that's like interview, you don't want to be underdressed because obviously you don't want to misread your audience again. Polos and chinos, yep, polos and khakis. Yep, that's pretty classic engineer wear, honestly. Oh, this is good. Have you ever been part of a group interview? And if so, how did you adjust to the setting where your competition literally is sitting next to you while you're interviewing? I can't speak on this because I have never been in a group interview. I've been in an interview with like multiple people interviewing me, but I've never actually been in an interview with other candidates. Does anybody have any experience with that? They could chime in.
So that's my question, and essentially what it was trying to remember. It was all generic questions, and it was 3 of us in the room with 2 other people interviewing all 3 of us at the same time. And I was really taken aback because I was not expecting that. I didn't know that was a thing. And I agree with you, Grayson, that kind of put red flags in my head, at least. As far as the interview went, it was more or less generic questions, but the added dynamic of basically having to follow up after someone made it very awkward, because a lot of it, you wanted to say, oh, I agree with the last guy or the last girl, but you also didn't want to say that. You wanted to try and distinguish yourself. And I think it was a pretty bad interview, but I kind of lost interest in the company after being put into that kind of a situation. So that's my personal experience on that.
Yeah, that would suck, honestly. I would hate that. I would not do well. I'm not a very competitive person, so I think having to like measure up my my like answers to other people would really stress me out. I think that would also, make me not really want to work for those people anymore. But yeah, Frost is right, is that like the first person who answers the question kind of sets the tone, I think, for all of the answers. And yeah, that would be horrible. I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. Ugh, yuck. I hope nobody else has had to deal with that. That would just be, uncomfortable all around. Anybody else got? I don't think we have any new questions in the chat.
I have a maybe unrelated, or this might not be on the topic of what this particular hour is supposed to be dedicated to, but I keep getting messages on LinkedIn for engineering technician positions.
Okay.
And I'm curious because I assume you all studied engineering. Are engineering technicians, is that like a stigmatized or a lesser version of an engineer, or like what is that, or like how should I sort of go about asking questions to the recruiters about that?
So in my industry, engineering technicians do not have engineering degrees. They do not have really design power, but they can if they like, I guess, grow as like a technician to become something else. So I'm going to use SpaceX for example because it's the easiest example for me. SpaceX, they have technicians, they have specialists, and then they have like their engineers. The technicians are the people who actually do the hands-on work. So they will build stuff for the engineers. They will, machine and manufacture stuff like that. They will sometimes order parts that need to be ordered, and they'll do assembly, stuff like that. Occasionally, so the specialists are basically like super technicians. So occasionally they'll do some like maybe like GSC design, some like light design work, but they're basically still in the technician sort of role where they are more hands-on than the design engineer. And the design engineer will actually be the ones, designing the things that the technicians will be building. So that's kind of how I've experienced kind of the difference between engineering technician and then like actual design engineer. I don't know if you guys have different experience than that, but that's kind of what it is, at least in my industry. Does that make sense, Grayson? I hope I answered your question.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, thank you. That makes sense.
No worries. I find that recruiters kind of sometimes undersell you. So be careful about that. I think I had a headhunter try to get me into a drafting position. And if you don't know, drafting is you make a lot less money and you don't actually design. So just be careful about like the wording.
Okay. Yeah, my kind of approach so far is just to be cordial, but kind of be like, I still have a couple more months before I'll feel the need to use recruiter resources like that, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't like burn bridges, like say they're horrible, but like I probably just wouldn't respond, and then like, down the line, if things change, then you can always go back and respond later. All right. Thank you for consideration. Yeah, you just ask them to interview you for a different role, just like Chase is suggesting. All right. Anybody have any other thoughts? What do you guys? What is an indicator of a really good interview? When you have a really like awesome, like nailing it interview, how, other than like how you feel, what is like a good kind of feedback from the person or way that you realize that you're doing a good job? Because I think that's hard for some people, is to realize like how they're doing.
Some of the panel response will be like, "Hey, that's a great answer, or a good answer." Chuckles and stuff that kind of give you some affirmation that your answers are good.
Yep, that's good. Good feedback. Anybody else? So I find that the like really good interviews, sometimes you don't even talk about engineering or the job. I find that usually if you talk about something totally different, I usually suggest let the interviewer drive the questions. And if the interviewer wants to talk about something totally, not related to the position, then let them, because if they're the one who's vetting you. So if they don't feel the need to ask you those technical questions and they want to talk about, something that you have in common or something like that, then that's good. I find that means that like they like you a lot and they want to, continue talking about something that maybe isn't related to the job. And finding something that you have in common can be really key. Rowan says that he knows an interviewer who just loves to talk about cars. Yeah, if you can figure out that the person likes to talk about cars and bring it up, yeah, do it.
Find that mildly depressing.
Yeah.
How seemingly non-meritocratic the whole process is. I guess that's the reality of it. But.
Yeah, well, I understand where you're coming from, Grayson, but especially entry-level engineers, the company's going to have to teach you everything over again. Like, I know you learn things in school, but you don't learn the way things are done in school, specifically at that company. So I think them liking you and liking your attitude and, stuff like that is almost sometimes more important than what you've learned. And especially key, I think, is how well you're willing to learn or how fast you learn or pick up on things. So, even if you weren't the most impressive student or stuff like that, charisma can really push you far. Really, really push you far. Definitely don't think that just because we're more technical than the business side. I've seen some people who are not great engineers who have gone really far just because people love to hear them talk and they're just it's very strange to see in person actually, but almost their charisma, everybody just kind of looks to them in the room to sort of fill the conversation. Yeah, that goes really, really far, I think. Yeah, again, they would make great MBAs, but they decided to do engineering, so I think they probably would do well, no matter what they chose. But yeah, I'd say don't discount people liking you, because I think that's pretty important, especially as an entry-level engineer. That's why it's important. That's why it's important to get on the other side of the employer and actually talk to someone, because I think as soon as you talk to somebody, you have a much better chance because you have name recognition, and if you can hold a conversation, then you're leagues above just paper resumes in my mind. Diode says, on one hand, skills and technical skills are important, but also can be argued sometimes it's better to work with someone you like than someone you don't really care about. Interesting take.
I've heard it's, there's a phrase, I can't remember the exact wording, but basically I'd rather work with a less competent, nice person than the most competent asshole, or something to that effect, basically.
No, I 100% agree with that. People who are nice and are just, infinitely more pleasant to be around, than maybe somebody who's more mean or stuck up or something like that. I totally agree. I think that's also kind of hard for engineers specifically, because I think a lot of people do come into interviews thinking that it's what am I trying to say? It's just a showing your skills and what you've learned, but there's such a big piece of how you communicate, how you talk. If you're likable, if you are quick on your feet, that kind of thing. I think, again, connecting it back, it's if you're likable, then I think it's a lot better than maybe if you aren't likable and, maybe are more technically inclined, I guess. Nice people are teachable. Yes, for us. Nice people are easy to teach because they're nice and, pleasant to be around. Smiling all the time will boost your chance during an interview. I hear that on the phone, that people can hear when you smile. But I don't know. I kind of act a little bit more outgoing when I'm on an interview than, maybe I am in real life. And I wouldn't say that that's ingenuine, but I think that it's kind of important to, show that you're a pleasant person to be around. Oh no, Chase. Chase says angry frowns aren't helping. All right, what time is it? 6. We got a little bit more time. Anybody else have any other things to chat about interviews, about networking, the scary networking? I said that I would talk about that too. We can talk about networking if you guys want to. Anybody? Okay, Rowan, we'll talk about salary negotiation. Okay, so your salary negotiation, when you are given an offer, you remember you don't have to give them a number. You don't have to. Like, there isn't anything that you have that says you have to give them a number. You can always just say, oh, I have to take a look at my finances and, maybe how the cost of living in that area, if you're going to move, that kind of thing. And just say, you'll get back to them or something like that. I've heard that it doesn't help you if you give a number straight off the bat because you don't know what they're thinking and what they're comfortable offering you. I don't know if I 100% buy that, but I can see where they're coming from. What do you guys think about salary negotiation if you're, being offered a job? Do you usually say, yeah, I want this amount of money. If I'm not getting that, I'm walking away? Or are you more of flexible with the range? What do you guys think?
Everything I've read basically said that, so number one, whoever says the number first is sort of inherently at a disadvantage because they sort of put all their cards out. Like you had mentioned, you're sort of valuing yourself if you're if you are the person who wants to get the job, and then if you're the employer, then you may have set a number that's way higher than the person would have accepted. And then number two, I've been told that basically asking for a range, because that tends to be how the company budgets for positions anyway. They'll just give some range of for the salary, so you can ask for that, and then sort of try to argue your way to somewhere on the higher end.
So I found that usually job postings will have a salary range included. However, you will obviously want the higher end, and the company will obviously want to pay the lower end. So I think that is where the inherent negotiation is and comes into play. I think the best way to do it is kind of arm yourself with a kind of a justification of why you think you deserve that amount of money. Obviously, location is critical because some places have higher cost of living than other places. And obviously your experience comes into play too. If you have experience versus coming in with zero experience, you're obviously going to be a little bit of a bump up if you have, that experience. Rowan also asks, if you asked for a higher salary, does that mean your chance of getting the job is lower? I doubt it, in my mind. I think that if you ask for a higher salary, it's kind of, I don't know if you guys have seen those like the shows like Pawn Stars or whatever. I think my dad watches it every now and then, but I think there's kind of a sort of, I guess I usually see them ask for more than what they expect, and then arguing it down to something that's maybe both agreeable to both sides. But I don't think they would be like if you say like, oh, I want like, $100,000 right off, out of college. I don't think that, I think they'd be like, well, you're being ridiculous or something like that. We can offer this much. But I don't think they would be like, no, we don't want to hire you anymore. Bye. Like, I think they obviously have expressed interest in you by giving you an offer. The negotiation is just kind of like the final piece, I guess. What do you guys say to that? Do you agree? Do you disagree?
I think I basically agree, and with what Chase said, I agree with that as well. It'll basically, if you give a salary range so outside of what is expected that it's basically like it kind of might show a misunderstanding of the position and responsibilities. It's like, oh yeah, no, you're definitely just looking for a different job because that's not what you're getting here.
No, that's true. That's true. What am I trying to say here? I've heard of, this wasn't a new hire, but it was basically like a guy saying, oh, I really want to quit. And he really wanted to quit. So what he did was saying, oh, I want this ridiculous amount of money that you guys would never really give me. And if you don't give me that, then I'm leaving. So it was kind of like a stab in the dark of some ridiculous number. I think it was like $400,000 a year or something for, an engineer. And the company was like, no. So the guy just quit. And I mean, that's what he was planning to do the whole time. But I think that was kind of just to see, get a chuckle, I guess, on his end. But, I guess worst case scenario, they say yes. I mean, if you're going to quit anyways, it doesn't really matter. But I think it is a little tricky to know your worth when you're a new hire. I guess looking at Glassdoor and the common salaries in your area for that type of position. I know some companies do engineer 1, 2, 3 sort of thing. So I guess just doing your research and being prepared. If they say a low number, I would be prepared to walk away under a certain amount of, under a certain amount of money.
Sometimes for jobs in the semiconductor industry, at least what I've found with my limited experience looking at different postings, it's kind of hard sometimes to find salary estimations because each job will have a really esoteric title to it. And so when you try to do a Glassdoor search or any kind of search for the position, there's just there's just not enough data.
I think with that, you might want to start with a more general title, if you can, I don't know, electrical engineer or something like that, and then kind of try to narrow it down after that. So at least it gives you a starting range. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to work off of nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, occupational employment and wage statistics for U.S. government-funded national data. Thank you, Chase. I have never heard of that, so yeah, I'm going to check that out. And I think negotiating a raise while you're already at a company is a little different, because I think you almost have more leverage in my mind, because you can actually say, hey, I worked on this project and this project and this project, and I did really well. and, you know, Joe gets paid this much. And talk to your coworkers. I know that that's like, some people feel awkward about that, but definitely talk to your coworkers, especially if you are a minority, like, because you want to know if you're getting underpaid. That's like a big deal. People can get in trouble for that. So I really highly suggest you talk to your coworkers and figure out and kind of compare to make sure that, you know, you're sane and you're, you know, not in this like little bubble. Like you guys have, you're in the same boat. It's like totally okay to talk about salary stuff. I think it should be a lot like less stigmatized, honestly.
During my internship.
Go ahead.
During my internship, I was talking with the facilities manager who does like all the upkeep on. He did a lot of different stuff, and he had been there for I think like a couple of years or something. And I was being paid $25 per hour for my internship, and we were talking about that exact point that people should discuss salary more. And when I told him I made $25 an hour, he was like. he got really mad because he had only been making 27, I think, after having been there for a while, and I think he left shortly after. So
yeah, roping back in your technician position. I know technicians at a certain company. I know engineers that make about 4 times as much as the technicians, and that's a lot. Like, it's a huge discrepancy, and that really comes down to the degree and, you know, the experience, I guess, plus or minus. But yeah, definitely do your research and self-advocate and talk to your coworkers. Yeah. No. Chase said that one of the drafters thought that the engineers made 80K until they told them that they make almost 60. Yeah. Talk to each other. Like, please. Please.
I think there's also a kind of general misrepresentation online because a lot of, you know, like either Silicon Valley or like West Coast people, like or just cities with a higher population density will post online, and that's not really the most significant. Like, it's not a super meaningful metric for how the salary should be distributed by region. You know, like people think they should be making 80K, and when they live in an area that's way less, way cheaper. You know.
Yeah, I'm the other way around. I honestly probably should have, I do regret this, but I probably should have negotiated my starting salary a little bit better. But living in like one of the highest cost of living areas, like my rent is probably like 4 times more expensive as yours. So while I do make more than, you know, somebody who lives in a lower cost of living area, like I spend a lot more, you know, on rent, on food. Food's expensive. Gas is over $4 a gallon, like continuously. Just like living is more expensive, unfortunately. That's why I want to leave. But other than that, yes, it sometimes can be very difficult to compare salaries in different areas. Can PTO and 401k matching be negotiated? Usually it's company policy, but if you're like super special, I think sometimes some companies will make exceptions, but I think that's very rare. That's like if you're like an expert and you're grumpy or something, I don't know. Ideal number for 401k matching is as high as possible, especially when you're young. Usually people say just dump as much as you can in the matching. I don't want to get into finances though, because I don't know very much about that. I don't want to lead anybody astray. But PTO, that's a little more challenging because different companies will have different PTO policies. That actually is a really good interview question. If you guys want to, take note of that, like, tell me about how your PTO stuff work. Like, do I have separate sick days and vacation days? Is it lumped together? Do I accrue? How fast do I accrue? And that usually people don't really realize how important that is. Hashtag not financial advice, exactly. I will not be giving any financial advice. Any other questions about that? Maybe? No? All right. You guys been questioned out? We can talk a little bit about networking and how to get a job via networking. I have a little speech pinned on one of the channels about how to get a job, but I think one of the things that engineers struggle with, especially that are just graduating, is networking. Because I think a lot of times people think the networking is for business majors or, humanities majors, but it's really important for us too. And that's how you get to talk to somebody on the other side of the page. On the other side, your resume can only do so much, especially if you don't have a really phenomenal, stellar resume that's like, saves puppies in your free time and, engineers everything. Networking is kind of how you jump that gap between resumes and interviews. Any questions about networking in particular, or should we be done? Is it 6:15? Thoughts?
I guess. Sorry, did I interrupt someone?
No.
Okay. Let's see. The most networking I've done so far for COVID was probably I attended a virtual event, and then I messaged the person who posted it. It was on Reddit from a Reddit post, and I thanked them, and then they basically offered to connect me with people whose experiences I found interesting. Nothing ever came of it. I arranged to have a phone interview with one of the people, but they ended up kind of ghosting me, and then I was just like, well. But I guess is that sort of the general advice? If everything's sort of online now, is it sort of go to those sorts of events, and then like what's the best way to bridge the gap between just talking to them and then like, hey, can you give me a job?
Yeah. No, it's a good question. So you shouldn't let people ghost you. I know that sounds weird, but if you follow up multiple times, I think it's more helpful to actually get somebody that says like a denial, like we don't have a position for you available right now. I think that's more helpful for you than just being totally ignored. And yeah, that's work for you. So, I mean, I guess when it becomes more work for you to keep following up, it's maybe not worth it after that. But I think following up is super, super important because in my experience, if your email is not in my inbox within the past like 5 days, you don't exist. Like, I just forget about you because I have other things going on. I have work, I have, home stuff. So I'd say don't be afraid of following up. Following up is like crucial. And even if you annoy them, then maybe they'll tell you no, and then you can move on. I don't think that's just like, I don't think you'll be worse off, because it'll be just like ghosting or no. I prefer no than ghosting. In terms of online events, you definitely can do that, for sure. If not here, then like I guess with COVID and masks and stuff starting to come back, maybe that's going to be how it is from now on for a while. But I think that it's not going to hurt. You know what I mean? Building connections isn't like you don't have a cap. You know what I mean? And I think if somebody like doesn't want to take the time, then they won't. But that's just what I've found. So
do you think it needs to just be?
Go ahead.
To just be really forward, like what's the? Because so far I've just kind of tried to ask really good questions and show that I'm interested, but I've never asked someone like, hey, do you have open positions that you think I would be a fit for or anything like that? I've kind of just danced around it, you know.
Well, if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid. The worst thing they can say is no, and then you're just in the same spot, you know, as when you started.
Sure.
I don't think you really have anything to lose by asking that. And I think that if people find you engaging and inquisitive, then they'll want to like kind of help. You know what I mean? You'd be really surprised the number of people who, you know, just the like amount of like the work that someone will do if they like you. Again, this goes back to the charisma thing. But if somebody likes you, they'll like, you know, they'll jump through hoops for you. It's very weird, but I don't think people realize it as much as they should, maybe. That kind of goes along with, you know, networking with friends and family and, you know, peers and past coworkers. If you don't feel comfortable asking for a job, you can always ask other questions like how they got their first job. Everybody loves talking about themselves, so you can always ask them about themselves and their experiences. But I think you need to be not afraid to say like, hey, do you mind asking your manager if they know of any positions that are available? Because maybe the person that you're talking to doesn't really have that power, but their manager probably does. And if their manager is, well, if they like you, then, you know, they'll do it. And if they don't, then they'll just say, oh, no, I don't think we have any positions. And then, you know not to waste your time and to move on. Does that make sense? That was kind of a long-winded answer. I apologize.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah, I just don't think you have anything to lose, honestly. That's kind of like the main takeaway. Oh man, the chat is like talking about something completely different. Oh my gosh. I'm lost. Should I scroll up? I don't know. Yeah, I think that's going to be it for me. If you guys are kind of keep going in the chat, you're more than welcome to. But I think have we exhausted our questions? It's weird. I've never done video with you guys before, so I think it went okay. I feel like there's like a separate chat going on in the chat. Chase, thoughts? I see you're muted.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I thought this was really good. A lot of people had some great input, whether you spoke out loud or spoke in the chat. I think we've gotten a few tangents here that developed into great conversations. So thank you to everyone. And of course, thank you, Emily, for taking time out of what I believe is a very special day or an important day for you. So We always appreciate you being here, but especially when you have a busy day.
Thanks, guys. I do suggest you take a look in the, I believe it's the job search or resume review, or maybe interview prep. One of those channels, there's a pretty awesome LinkedIn interview prep document that has a bunch of questions, interview questions, behavioral questions, and I think it's a really great resource if you want to, practice. If you're uncomfortable interviewing, practice with a friend, practice with, somebody here. We have an interview practice room. So I think take advantage of it. And other than that, thanks for watching. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.